Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and welcome to our episode of Monday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for today comes from James, and it is, how would you feel about a defensive operator in Rainbow Six Siege who can shoot a grappling hook at the ceiling and essentially repel to the middle of a room? This would allow her/him to get a drop on incoming attackers since people don't expect people to be on the ceiling. They may also be able to repel near balconies and open hatches and vaults on the railing on upper level to go up a floor. So admittedly, the first time I read this question, I didn't think it'd be all that useful. I mean, sure, it might sound cool in theory to be able to rappel up to the ceiling and catch someone by surprise, but how often is that actually going to happen? If someone drones the room that you're in, they're going to see this giant rope in the middle of the room or in the corner of it and be like, oh, he's on the ceiling. Let me charge on in and take him down, no problem. I mean, you guys know when you're rappelling in this game, you're at a massive disadvantage. You can't hide behind anything. There's no cover up there. And so when someone charges around the corner, they know exactly where you are. You have no cover whatsoever. They're going to take you down, no problem. And so at least from that point of view, I don't think this operator would be all that impressive. On the other side, though, your second description, it makes it sound a lot more interesting and could give defense much more mobility. And so instead of thinking of this as a way to surprise the enemy by being above them, well, what if this was a way for you to surprise the enemy by being on a completely different floor through a hatch? This was an idea that we talked about in a past Sunday Mailbox a long time ago. There was a supposed leak that there was going to be an offensive operator that was going to have like a ladder or a rappel that would allow the offensive team to get through these hatches from below. And while it sounded okay for the offensive team, the reason why I'm more excited for this to be as a defender operator is that this would give defense a lot more ways at flanking the enemy and catching them by surprise. If the enemy knows that you're down below in the basement and the objective is on the second floor, well, instead of having to go up one of the staircases, which they're going to be watching for because they know you're down there, well, what if you had the ability to just simply rappel up through one of the hatches? You already established those flanking routes before the round started. You had the forethought that this is going to be your plan since the very beginning. Now you have a completely different flanking route to get from those different stories. That makes things a lot more interesting. The more that I think about this actually may also be a good way at just surprising the enemy like you first stated. Maybe not by placing it in the middle of the room and then rappelling up to the ceiling. Maybe if you're playing on bank in the main lobby, that might work. I don't think that's going to be the main function, but if you put this next to a doorway, for example, if it's adjacent to the doorway, kind of directly behind it slightly, you rappel on up so the enemy can't see the rappel line. They don't know that you're there because of the rope itself, and then you just kind of peek your head out really quickly and then catch them by surprise. The enemy isn't going to be looking at the top end of a doorway for the defensive team. Like, that just doesn't happen in Siege right now. They're going to be watching for head level. That actually might be really powerful. If now you have to watch out for every single doorway or entryway for an angle that you're not expecting, that actually could be really good. And so I kind of take back what I said originally. Yeah, you may not want to use this in the middle of the room. I don't think that would be all that useful. But if people got smart, and you know Siege players, they're gonna take advantage of everything they can in this game. If they put this in certain spots on the map, it may be very powerful. The next question is, what are your thoughts on the CanCan changes now that they have finally gone live? I would say that Ubisoft has done a good job with the CanCan changes. I was a bit worried that he was going to be obnoxious to fight against, and while he can be a little annoying if you're not watching every single doorway that you're running through, I think in general it has just made him a more competent operator. I would actually go out on a limb and say that CanCan would be even better than he is right now if Lesion and Ela weren't already in Rainbow Six Siege. Before that update, before those two operators were introduced, the meta in Siege was running around as 3-speed operators and just charging the objective. Ashe mains were really big back then, and while Ashe is still very strong, she's always going to be strong, you have to take things a lot more methodically. And so the result of this is that people were already conditioned to watch out for these traps, and while CanCan's is a bit different from theirs, it's still a trap, it's something you have to watch out for, and so people are finding them just as much as they're finding the Ela and the Lesion mines. With all that being said though, I still feel like CanCan is in a much better place right now. His traps may not be going off as often as I assumed they would when I initially read the patch notes, but he's doing doing exactly what he's designed to, which is to slow down the enemy progress, and if they do want to charge into the objective, they're going to be met with a nice fireball. The fact that he's a 2 armor, 2 speed has basically just been the cherry on top, and so now when I think of CanCan, I'm not thinking of someone who's underwhelming, I'm thinking of someone who's much more balanced. He may not be overpowered, but the good thing is that he doesn't feel completely underpowered. The next question comes from @DemonLegacy, and it is, how would you go about buffing Tachanka in Siege? Well, I think there's a couple ways that Ubisoft could go about this. One suggestion that I really like is giving Tachanka 3 separate shields. Now, I'm not talking like Blackbeard where he can replace one after one is destroyed. Well, that would actually be one way they could buff it, but I don't want that. What I would like is making it so that each of his 3 shields, you'll notice that when you use him, you have your forward shield and then the left and the right ones. They all seem like they're 3 different parts. Will now actually make them 3 different parts. That way, if the enemy takes out the left part of the shield, that will be destroyed and leave you exposed, but you'll still have your front and the right side. The reason why I suggest this change is that a lot of the times, one of the reasons why your shield gets busted is that you can't see the enemy, but they can see your shield. They may be able to see like the far left-hand corner, they slowly whittle it down by tap firing, make sure that it's destroyed, and now you're left with, of course, not a shield, you're stationary, and they're going to be able to round the corner and get an easy headshot against you. That really sucks. And so by having this implemented into 3 different parts, if they want to do that same strategy, yes, you have less shield protecting you, but if you're forward facing, you're staring right at where the enemy is going to be coming from, you're still going to have that forward protection. That I think would be a nice step in the right direction. Another way they could handle it is giving him simply just 2 different turrets. A lot of the times, the reason why Tachanka struggles is that the enemy is able to take out his first turret, or they're pushing too aggressively and you need to fall back, and then you're pretty much useless at that point, at least with relation to your gadgets. And so how awesome would it be if he just had simply another one to fall back on? One of the biggest weaknesses with Tachanka is that as soon as the enemy realizes where you are, even though you have that shield, you're at a massive disadvantage because you are stationary. The stationary aspect about Tachanka is the reason why he's weak, or at least I think that's the reason why he's weaker than a lot of the other defending operators. And so by allowing him to place 2 of these things, that gives him some mobility. The enemy might think, oh, he's on this turret, well, let's push on in and take him down. Well, he's moved on over to his second one, and then he's going to be able to hopefully have at least a small advantage against you because now you're guessing what part of the room that he's in. That might also be a nice upgrade to him. Another way they could tackle it is by giving his turrets rails, allowing you to strafe to the left and the right slightly when you're using it. While it doesn't give you as much mobility as having 2 gadgets at your disposal, if the enemy is in a firefight with you, as soon as your shield goes down, at least you don't have to be stationary. You can kind of strafe to the left and the right slightly, hopefully allowing you to either get behind cover or giving you that little bit of movement to win the firefights. That is another way they could go about it. Other than those, though, I don't really know how else Ubisoft would be able to go about buffing this guy. I mean, they could just simply give his shield more HP. I mean, that would be lovely. That shield does seem a bit flimsy, but that seems like a weak solution to a lot of the problems that we just talked about. It doesn't address the fact that people can just shoot a shield from the side without even having line of sight of Tachanka himself. And so let me know what you guys think about all of this. I mean, I am constantly bombarded with questions on how I think Tachanka should be upgraded, and so I wanted to address it in a Sunday Mailbox episode. And so what would you do to change him to make him better? Do you think that these are good ideas? Would you go another way? Let me know down below in the comment section. The next question comes from Chris, and it is, what if they came out with a Bouncing Betty as a gadget in Rainbow Six? Don't we already have enough trap operators in the game? I feel like I'm crazy because you would not believe how many questions I get around adding more traps. It's like we already have to watch out for Ella Legion. We got frost traps on the ground. We got CanCan. He just got a recent buff. Do we really need more? And while it probably wouldn't be as bad as I'm thinking that would be, because a lot of the times when people recommend adding in a Bouncing Betty, they want it to be like the Call of Duty franchise. If you guys ever played COD, if you activate one of those gadgets, it kind of flings up really quickly, and if you're standing, you get taken out, but as long as you're crouched, you're good to go. And so this just reinforces that slowing down of the meta. As long as you're crouched, as long as you're taking things methodically, you're not running around like a mania like an Ash main, you'll be just fine. And so with that in mind, it probably wouldn't be all that bad, But it's like, do we need another trap operator? Do we need more gadgets that are just all of a sudden gonna take us out? I don't know about you guys, but I don't like getting taken out by gadgets. It's just not all that satisfying. If someone wins a firefight, good on them. They won that firefight. That felt skillful. But if someone placed a trap randomly around the map, well, yes, there is some skill involved there. I don't want that to be the thing that's constantly taking people out. If all of a sudden it's just like everyone on offense got taken out by traps, is that going to make for the most satisfying experience? I would say that it wouldn't be. And so while I'm sure there's going to be people out there that will disagree with me and they would love to have the bouncing Betty added into Siege, I'm definitely not one of them. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you like the idea of having a repel operator on defense? Do you think that's a bad idea? Let me know down below in the comment section. As always, if you would like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment down below or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.